All right, guys, Static here, back to tell you about how the adventure went. It's been about a week now since we ran it. We ran it last Saturday night, and it is now Sunday the next week. So we are in the middle of Thanksgiving weekend, and I just wanted to go over what we got accomplished. As usual, things didn't go as planned, but I guess that's to be planned. You got to plan in to go with how the players guide you and go with the story. I also shortened the time. We used to go about 6+ hours with no breaks. Other than just, I would allow people to get up from the table, go get food and stuff like that. We'd have, munchies out to go snack on. But this time we took 3 specific breaks for about 15 minutes plus. Let people kind of mingle around and go to the bathroom and do what they needed to do just to refresh them, because last time people gassed. We ran from about 6 to midnight, trying to do it as it was darker here in Oklahoma, and I think that was a mistake. So we kind of moved the time up 2 hours, installed some breaks, and also shortened it so it was around about a 5-hour game with plus breaks added in, for about 6 hours total, but with breaks. So about 4 to 10-ish. We ended up running till about, I think, 10:30, with the last scene kind of extending a little bit, because I wanted it to feel intense. Now, that covers the breaks. Cuts that we made, I guess at the end of the story, I don't know if you can see who we got in here. This guy, Dane, was kind of the first light leader, and he ended up being the big bad for the whole thing. I originally kind of was going to have him be a problem and kind of be the initial problem that the players were dealing with, but then have this guy, Andre, show up and actually be the big bad for the adventure. He was going to take control of Aten, this guy here, who's an ancient vampire that gets released during they're trying to rescue one of their sires who the First Light have captured, and they're taking him up to the top of the Devon Tower, which is like a big building here in Oklahoma City, and they're going to tie them to these big metal posts and expose them to sunlight as the sun comes up. So it's kind of a heist mission where the players are going around and getting men and explosives and weapons and vehicles and stuff from the different factions, all the different factions that we have here. They're going and meeting with them, having social interactions with them to prepare and then plan their rescue mission for the sire. And we had 2 Tremere characters, and they were rescuing Bethesda here. And if she was killed, there's a potential that they were going to also be dusted if she was killed. So that was kind of the motivation was, hey, 2 of your coterie could just instantly be destroyed if she is destroyed. So you need to go rescue them. Now, I guess the answer is what I would use, and I don't of course, I'm with me in front of me here, but I use a plus-minus die, D6, and I was going to roll that die. If they got dusted, I was going to roll that die. On a plus, they made it. On a minus, they didn't. So there's a potential they could have been destroyed in the during the heist mission. Now I had backup characters, and we had plenty of other characters, assistant characters that could have taken over their spot. But of course, I guess I try not to kill characters, usually at least not until at least the final scene. Again, I run a lot of, so I'm trying to find a card here. I run a lot of one-shots, so I'm not, I've been known to murder some characters, especially in the final battle, but at the same time, I don't love to do that. But what I would have done is I had characters made up for these guys, so I would have pulled them and added them into, they would have picked up one of these characters as the vampire muscle and played as them. So they would have been less powerful, because that's kind of the punishment for losing your character. I think there should be some consequences, but at the same time, they would have been able to just stay in the game, continue on to the final scene. So we talked about the times. I moved the time up a little bit during the day because people were gassed. Last time I ran Vampire, we played till midnight. People were borderline falling asleep in their seats at the final mission, which is, supposed to be the most tense, most exciting, and people were exhausted. We had a lot of wine. We've had a lot of alcohol in general. Before that, I'd made up some blood packet red wine deals that I was handing out to people to use to gain their life back. So they were literally drinking a lot of red wine during it, and it just made everyone exhausted and sleepy. So I learned my lesson. I didn't intentionally hand out alcohol during the game. I just let people drink as they wished, and we started a little bit earlier and had breaks. So that was probably the main thing on that. Trying to think of other things that we would cover. The final battle, I guess cuts. I had to make cuts. We had to cut Andre out. He didn't even show up. We just kept Dane as the main big bad. Instead of Andre taking control of Aten whenever he got out, I had Dane take control of Aten, and he was going to use Aten to attack a zombie parade that was kind of like a 5K zombie walk going on in Oklahoma City the next night after the rescue. And they had a ancient scarab stone that had been inside of the sarcophagus that Aten was in, and that could be used if you held it against your heart to control Aten. So Dane figured that out and was going to use Aten to attack the crowd in the middle of this highly public, highly visible event with lots of cameras around, camera crews and stuff like that. I told him kind of like, oh, this is being covered nationally. They're going to come and show this zombie walk. So you got camera crews everywhere. So the team had to deal with it. And Valentina, the Ventru, I guess the prince of Oklahoma City, directed them to deal with this because they had released Aten, thinking they were releasing Bethesda. I had given different numbers of the caskets that the First Light guys had, and so they opened up Bethesda's and they opened up Aten's. There was also another one that had Iron Maven, which was kind of an NPC to help them. They did not get her out in time, and so she unfortunately was dusted in the sunlight whenever they got her to the top of the tower. So they lost her because they ran out of time and did not get her casket open. So they gained an enemy and lost a friend in that kind of like botched rescue attempt. They did get Bethesda back. She was okay, which saved me from having to roll for the 2 Tremere players. And I guess so. At that point, had to make some cuts because we were running short on time, and we had one final scene to go, and it was where Andre usually would have shown up, explained how he's going to take control of them because he was this cultist leader and stuff like that. So I just cut all that. They already knew Dane. They already knew who he was. Keep it simple. Use a character they already know instead of introducing this whole new character, which we would have to have, would have needed to extend the scene and have them learn about him, find out how to defeat him, because he himself is also undead in like a zombie type of way. Because I guess I think this is from Dust to Dust, or maybe me mixing it together and making my own. But I was saying that his soul is kind of like linked in limbo, so he doesn't. It's like he's unhurtable because of his soul isn't linked to his body. So you can stab him in the face, rip out his guts. He feels nothing, and it can't kill him because his soul is already like linked to limbo. So what they needed to do was either pull him all the way into limbo or bring him all the way back into the land of the living so that he could be destroyed, because he was in this weird half and half to where you couldn't really injure him because of that. So, which meant you had to do deals with Oberon, who's like a Wraith Lord. He's like kind of one of the lords of Limbo, and he was, if you did a deal with him, then he would have some of his ghost cronies either pull him all the way into Limbo, kind of ghost style. If you ever remember the old movie, I'm dating myself on that one. But so regardless, what we ended up doing is having Dane control Aten. They had to attack him. Dane had religious powers. He has the ability to create wards that can either blast you and push you back, or just protect himself with them. And so he was in himself, just by himself, was pretty powerful. And then Aten was a very ancient vampire who was just shredding people. I mean, he has very strong melee attacks and was drinking humans, drinking vampires, just is borderline out of control and barely controlled by Dane. He took down one of the players, the Aten did. Dane took down another player with him and a bunch of First Light thugs with machine guns, just, filled them full of bullets to where they had to go into torpor. But the other remaining 4 were able to finish the job and take Dane out. Otten got away because they were able to knock the scarab out of Dane's hand, which released Otten. Otten kind of was like, what do I do now? He had fed a lot already, so he just skedaddled and got out of there. And got far enough away that the scarab wouldn't affect him anymore, at least until they get it close to him again, because that was the first thing that the players tried to do, is snatch up that scarab and use it to control him. But I determined that, he'd gone a little bit too far out of distance, but if they could get closer to him later, maybe there's another chance for them to interact and take control of him. They probably should, because he's a homicidal, almost bestial, he's pure beast at this point. He does not think thoughts about, rational thoughts about how to conduct himself, which means he's a threat to the Masquerade. So that's an adventure for another day, and that's what the players asked for. They're like, we want to go get Otten. They wanted to keep going in another session. They wanted to make this a regular thing, and I guess that's, in the end, that tells you that you did a good job with the one shot. I wasn't planning on making this campaign, but it's definitely something I can consider to do, probably as a once a month type of situation where we do this type of game. So those are my notes. Don't be afraid to make cuts. Don't be afraid to modify the story on the fly to fit with A, the timeline, and B, what's happening, and I guess don't be afraid to cut characters, because if I would have given them Andre in a short time, it wouldn't have been as fulfilling, because they wouldn't have known who the heck he was. It wouldn't have made really a whole lot of sense, because they wouldn't have got a chance to learn about the cult of Nyx. They wouldn't have been able to learn about him and how to defeat him. And it just would have been confusing to throw in this new character that was pretty much the real bad guy in the last second, and just for that final act, without developing him the way I wanted to. So I guess that's the lesson I'm trying to impart to you guys, is don't be afraid to cut stuff. Just make it work with what you've already been working with. Make that lieutenant minion the big bad, and go from there. So, all right, guys, hope you liked it. Thank you. Static out.